Good afternoon. This is TJ Schultz. I'm the president of the Airport Consultants Council. It's great having you all join us for our ACC new member orientation webinar. This is something that we like to do periodically. Really happy to have you as members of ACC. And what we want to do through this webinar is to introduce you to the organization, what we do, and some of the services and things that we provide to our members. And really throughout the webinar, hope to convey to you some opportunities to best use your time and make ACC membership as effective as possible for you. So we're going to go over a few initiatives, and at the end we'll open up for questions and answers. And it's my pleasure right now to introduce Don Bergen, who is the Vice President with Blast Deflectors based in Reno, Nevada. And Don is the current ACC Board Chair. Don, welcome.
Thank you, TJ. Well, as TJ said, my name is Don Bergen. I'm with Blast Deflectors Incorporated out of Reno. BDI is an active member of ACC for right around 20 years, and I've been active in the association for about 15 years. I'll talk a little bit later on about my progression through ACC and how I got involved when BDI hired me. BDI was an established firm. I was new to the aviation industry. So enough about me. I'd like to introduce you to the ACC staff. I'm actually sitting in ACC's headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia. But the first staff member that I'm going to introduce you to is in Las Vegas. Colleen Flood. Most of you probably spoke to Colleen or interfaced with Colleen at some point as you joined ACC. So Colleen, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do with ACC?
Sure, thanks, Don. This is Colleen Flood calling in from the fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today on the new member webinar. We're happy to have you. I do membership, as a lot of you know. A lot of you sent me your application. I also do some office admin, marketing, and meeting planning. And many of you know me from that. From running the annual every year, among other events.
Thanks, Colleen. Next up is Chris Spalding. Chris, tell us a little bit about what you do here at ACC.
Sure. Again, my name is Chris Spalding. I'm the coordinator of communications here at ACC. Been here for about a little over 3 years now, and I oversee the communications platform, so publications, emails, social media, and we'll go a little bit more into detail on those later on in the webinar, but I also oversee the Young Professionals Forum.
Thanks, Chris. And last up is Matt Griffin. Matt, please introduce yourself and tell us what your role is with ACC.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Griffin. I am the Director of Regulatory Affairs and Education. I work with TJ on a lot of our regulatory issues, primarily on the FAA side, and also develop a lot of the program for both our regular events and our Institute training events. So now I'm going to actually run through the list. I'm looking at the roster. I believe we have 5 members who've joined us. When I say off your name, and bear with us as we try to work through the technology, I'm going to call out your name, you should hear that you're unmuted, and then just ask you to very quickly introduce yourself and your organization. So we'll start with Charles Sander.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Charles Sander. I'm the Director of Airports for North America and Canada for Unisys Corporation. This is my second time of being with ACC. I think the last time I was there was when I was with Unisys in 2005, and Paula Hochstetter was the president, but thank you very much.
Thanks, Charles. Next up, we have Christina Vanasek.
Hi guys, my name is Christina Vanacek. I'm the Public Sector Marketing Manager at PricewaterhouseCoopers. This is my first foray with ACC, so very much looking forward to getting us involved.
Thanks, Christina. Mr. Dave Byers.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can, sir.
Oh, awesome. Hey, great. Actually, this is the second iteration of my involvement with ACC. I was a new member last year after a hiatus of several years. Pretty much a one-man operation, but run the gamut of all types of airport projects. Usually I find myself in the stuff that nobody else knows what to do or nobody's ever done it before. So a lot of times I'll be out there trying to figure out how to make things work. But you know, as far as you know, the organization and what it represents, you know, I feel there's a real strong value in having that connection network-wise. You know, after you know, just probably this is my 35th year in airport development, airport management. I did some time working for an airport, but you know, it seems like you know, there's always something coming around the pipe that, you know, usually the FAA does it to us, and then we got to figure out how we're going to do it. So that's a never-ending story.
Thanks, Dave. We have Dave Mitchell.
Hi, I'm the Vice President of a company called TO Engineers. We're based in Meridian, Idaho, which is right next to Boise. We work on airports throughout Idaho, Washington, and Oregon, and been in the airport business for quite a while, but just finally pulled the trigger to join ACC, so we're excited to be a part.
Thanks, Dave. And finally, Melanie Barnes. Yeah, Melanie, I think you're logged in on two things. Maybe turn down your computer speakers.
Okay.
All right, give it a try now.
Is that better now?
Yeah.
No. I'll just speak softly. I've learned.
Sorry, Melanie, we had a little feedback. We'll quickly run through. Maybe at the end, I would say try turning down your computer speakers, but Melanie is with Shrewsbury and Associates. They're an experienced aviation services staff member of Shrewsbury. I've worked as owners, technical representatives, program managers, engineers, consultants, construction managers, and resident inspectors. Services range from high-level planning and NEPA documentation to design and civil engineering to construction inspection. Shrewsbury is a certified MBE, DBE, SBE, and VOSB in several states. Sorry about that, Melanie. We'll try to figure it out at the end if you have any questions. Back to you, Don.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks everyone for introducing yourselves and giving us some context and background into what your firm specializes in so that we can understand where you're coming from as you joined ACC. So ACC is a relatively small, nimble association with a staff of 5, just 217 members. When you compare that to some of the larger industry associations, it really is a small association that gives the staff the flexibility to support very closely the needs of the membership. So let's talk about the members for 1 second. There are currently 217 members. 75% of those members are professional services firms. So of the new members on the call, a couple of you I think would fall into that category. Planners, architects, engineers, that sort of thing. The balance of the membership, roughly 25%, are manufacturers, vendors, companies that offer airfield lighting, passenger boarding bridges, hey, even jet bus deflectors, but also IT, security equipment, financial institutions. These are the wide range of members that are not necessarily professional services firms, but nonetheless a very important component in an association called the Airport Consultants Council. They aren't technically consultants, but have an equal voice in the association. So the main takeaway from, the main takeaway from today's orientation is to stress how important it is that you get involved in ACC in order to get the maximum return on the investment in time and money that your firms are making in ACC. You know, it was interesting, Dave Byer mentioned that he's been in the industry for 35 years. This is his second time around being with ACC. But Dave, I know you're on mute right now, so I get to take some liberties in what I guess you might say. You mentioned that you joined for the strong connection. Really, the networking opportunities are so important at ACC, but to fully tap into those networking opportunities, you need to have a plan. And ACC staff is a great resource that you can use to identify how to best get involved, whether it's identifying which committee most suits your skill set or the message that you want to deliver on behalf of your firm, which events make the most sense for you to attend, possibly sponsor or exhibit, or just attend. You really need to find ways to get involved in order to get the most benefits from your membership. We do recognize that time is the biggest constraint. ACC staff is here to help you find ways to best utilize ACC given your situation and interests. So year after year, we hear from ACC members that the top value they get from being a part of ACC is the opportunity to network with their peers, going back to Dave's point earlier. This networking leads to project and teaming opportunities and intelligence, but to fully tap into that network, you've got to get involved. As far as teaming, getting to know the aviation leads in other companies and firms is key to developing those potential arrangements. Dave Mitchell, you mentioned that your firm's primary focus is really a niche market in Idaho and surrounding markets. And I'm sure you see instances where other firms are coming into the area and there might be teaming opportunities. ACC could present excellent opportunities for you to meet firms that you may or may not have connections with. And that's one example of how I would encourage you to tap into ACC staff. If there is a particular firm that you know is involved in an upcoming project, yet you don't really know where to begin in terms of making a connection beyond just looking in the ACC directory and seeing the head of the airport practice for that firm, ACC staff is an excellent vehicle to use to interface with a potential teaming partner. It's a strategy that I've used successfully on a number of occasions. Another great perk of ACC, and this applies to both professional services firms as well as manufacturers, vendors, is what's called the ACC Outlook. And this is a weekly email that ACC sends out to members only that summarizes new airport development opportunities, solicitations for both professional services and products, both domestically and internationally. So when airport industry firms ask me, well, what are the benefits of ACC? Apart from the obvious networking opportunities, very often I'll send a few examples of ACC Outlook so that you can see the type of market intelligence you'll be receiving on a weekly basis. And I've really stressed to use ACC staff to develop those contacts. They are very well networked. They understand what all of the members do. There aren't so many members, 217, so ACC staff really can drill down on each member and understand exactly what it is they do and how to help their members make connections. I'd like to talk a little bit about exposure. ACC puts on a number of industry events. These events, and Colleen's going to talk a little bit more about these later on, but these events present excellent speaking opportunities for subject matter experts and are a perfect avenue to showcase ACC members to both other members and the industry as a whole. ACC offers plenty of opportunities for you to discuss your expertise and your products and services at numerous industry events. The symposium, my personal favorite event, is also ACC's largest event, and Colleen will tell us more about that later on. It's a technical event attended by over 800 industry representatives with more than 30 sessions and 150 speaking opportunities. The reason I wanted to draw your attention to the symposium is that it really is the crown jewel of ACC's events in the sense that it presents so many opportunities for ACC members, whether they're professional service firms or whether they are in that other category, to speak and showcase their firm's services and products. Other events would be the annual conference, the airport technical workshop, webinars. We're going to talk a little bit about all of those things later on. And of course, apart from the events and the networking, one of the great benefits of ACC is to understand what is happening on the Hill. And if you're from a small firm like I am, you don't necessarily have the resources to understand exactly how developments in Washington affect the industry and your firm. ACC is a great resource in that sense, and I'd like to turn it over to TJ to talk about the advocacy aspect of ACC.
Sure, thanks, Don. And again, I want to talk a little bit about what we do as it pertains to representing your interests here in Washington and within the industry in general. And I guess I'll start by saying that I'm sure many of you are familiar with ACI and AAAE, and we work in lockstep with them on a number of different issues here in Washington, D.C. on the regulatory front and also with Congress, particularly as it relates to funding. We're trying to do all we can to get the maximum amount of funding out of the FAA and TSA and just trying to get funding for airport projects in general. And one thing I've seen is there are a lot of airports, and some of you might be familiar with this, that are not necessarily turning to government. They're looking to find funding their own ways, or maybe even airlines are stepping in. So I think that's kind of a new dynamic that we are responding to. And again, I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that you all as members are aware of new opportunities to get funding and financing and some of these new stakeholders that are coming to the table. So as it relates to Congress, the FAA, and TSA, we provide updates to you all as to what's taking place, particularly now with the FAA reauthorization. Congress deliberating on that right now. A lot of interest in TSA with the Brussels attack and the lines that are growing at airports. We provide updates to the members on things that are happening here in Washington and on Capitol Hill, and also provide updates on the regulatory front. If FAA has any new advisory circulars or guidance, if TSA has any new regulations, we inform the membership in our committees of news that takes place there. One thing, though, that really sets us apart from ACI and AAAE is, again, we really focus on you all operating a business out there. AAAE and ACI don't. They really represent the sponsors. So we are doing all we can to make sure that you all are operating in an environment that really fosters your ability to compete for projects. And one way that we do that is we advocate for best practices relating to procurements and contracts. We interface with Capitol Hill, with the FAA and TSA, and try to foster policies and legislation that that really benefit companies as far as beneficial procurement regulations and contracting regulations. And again, that really sets us apart from ACI and AAAE. And we're also, particularly with the FAA and TSA, we offer opportunities for direct interface with decision makers in those agencies through our events and other workshops and things like that. And finally, we're not only relegated to the U.S., we are also a global association as well. So while we certainly work on legislation and laws and happenings here in the United States, we also have a global focus, and our outlook has international project opportunities. We have a lot of news and updates relating to what's taking place at international airports. And we also have an event, the Global Business Summit, where we bring together international companies to foster potential teaming arrangements. So again, that's just some snapshot of what we do on the advocacy front. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Colleen, who's going to talk a little bit about our training and our events.
Okay, thanks, TJ. ACC, as some of you may know, puts on a lot of events, many focused on training. And as Don mentioned, he's a big fan of Symposium. The full name is ACC AAAE Airport Planning, Design, and Construction Symposium. It gets shortened to Symposium. It has 5 tracks, planning environmental track, terminal landside track, airside engineering, CMPM track, and then, though it changes every year, mini tracks on various topics on IT, finance, global diversity. We also give credit. We give AICP credit, PE credit for a certificate of attendance, and AIA credit for the architects. It's a very popular event. Next year it will be in New Orleans, February 21st through the 23rd, so I hope you can all join us. The next event, for any security folks on the line, is our premier security event, the ACC TSA Security Capabilities Workshop. It's always in the summer with heavy participation from TSA headquarters. And because of that, it's usually in Arlington, Virginia, so it's close to TSA headquarters over in Pentagon City, Pentagon Row. That is July 19th through the 21st at the DoubleTree Hotel. And up next is the ACC Airports Technical Workshop. I thought I heard quite a few people on the phone are very focused on FAA related matters. This is our FAA workshop. We also, just like the TSA security event, we have a lot of people from FAA headquarters that come over and participate in planning environmental tracks and engineering tracks. We also give credit as well for AICP and PE certificates as well for attendance. The next event is, for some, our most popular. It is our networking event, our annual conference where our officers change over to the new year. We have committee meetings. It's our business meeting, but it's a heavy networking event. And I've had many members tell us that it's their favorite event of the year for networking. That is going to be November 14th through the 16th this year in Palm Beach Gardens, which is West Palm Beach. I hope you can join us. It's a little bit later this year to avoid the contentious national election that we have coming up. And I think that's the end. I'm at the end of my list for events, so I'll turn it back over to you.
I actually have one more there, the Global Business Summit, and that's normally held in December. And that is an opportunity where we bring in companies that are either engaged in or want to be engaged in international project pursuits. And we've been going, I think, Don, for 5 years, maybe 6 years. And for the first time last year, we held it in London. And we partnered with the British Aviation Group. And it was such a successful event that we are looking to hold that again in London the end of November. Excellent opportunity for U.S., UK, and other international companies to get together, talk about markets, talk about some of the procurement and project challenges, and most importantly, to develop some professional teaming networking.
Thanks, TJ.
No problem. Thank you.
So next up, Chris Spalding is going to talk about the YP Forum, which is a relatively new aspect of ACC. It's been around for less than 4 years, but in that brief time, the YP Forum or YP program has become a main focus for the association and has really changed in many ways the events and the drive of ACC. So Chris, tell us some background on the YP program, YP Forum, what it is, and how new firms could have their younger members become active in the forum.
Thanks, Don. So our YP Forum is really a great way to engage young professionals who are 35 years and younger with the overall industry peers and the other young professionals. It's intended to link them to opportunities that they may not have access to within their own firm, such as networking, mentoring, education, leadership, and career growth opportunities. Currently, we have about 200 plus members, and it's continuously growing. It's free to join, even if you're not a young professional, but even if you're not an ACC member or if you're an airport planner, but normally we see a lot of the very engaged young professionals as ACC members who are in our leadership positions. We have a lot of different activities and events throughout the year for the YP Forum, including quarterly conference calls, networking events. One of our biggest events, that's the biggest draw to YPs, is the Airport Symposium that Colleen had mentioned a little earlier. It attracted this year, just last month in Salt Lake City, over 90 YPs. And the reason why it's so robust is because Faith Group, if you're familiar with them, puts this program together, and it really engages YPs with other senior professionals and sessions throughout the networking workshops in a competition that they put together so that these YPs can get the most out of the event. And on top of the symposium, we have other ACC events that we like to get YPs together, but on top of that, We like to do networking get-togethers at non-ACC events. For example, we have the AAAE annual conference approaching us very quickly. We are hosting a YP meet and greet in the opening Grand Hall reception on Sunday, May 15th. So if you plan on attending the annual conference for AAAE, we really encourage you to stop by the Arconis booth, which is where it's going to be held, and try to engage with these young professionals from other firms that are also ACC members. We also hold different webinars throughout the year that focus on professional development, such as networking, marketing, social media. We have a Social Media 101 webinar coming up in May, so that might interest you and your YPs in your firm. And we also have a innovation competition, which is a yearly competition put together by ACC, where teams of young professionals submit innovative ideas that further airport development globally and address current and future challenges. And winners receive up to $3,000 in prizes. So, you know, it's not just, you know, pocket change for them, but it's also great exposure because they get to present their submissions at the airport symposium. So next year, the winners from this year will be able to present at the symposium in New Orleans. So if you have any young professionals in your firm, we really encourage you to let them know that this exists and that they can easily sign up on our website by going to the YP Forum webpage, and there's a link there where they can fill out a form and sign up easily.
And just to give a couple real-world examples of how an ACC member firm has had employees benefit from the YP Forum, BDI, the company I work for, we're very small, less than 22 people. We have a couple of young employees who have become very active in the YP Forum. Every year at the symposium, they have a scavenger hunt where they're required to meet certain people or do certain things, and then you win a prize. One of our employees won a free article in the ACC online magazine. Another example, ACC YP Forum had a great webinar on how to network. How do you go to a conference and meet people and really get the most value when your firm decides to pay to send you to these events? It's not just about having a good time. And it was an excellent webinar, and our young guys, I think, learned quite a bit from that. So the great thing about the YP Forum is you don't necessarily have to be a YP. They do have some rules about what categorizes as a YP. You can still go to all the social events. They're very generous in that sense, and I'm personally looking forward to the AAAE annual conference reception, which should be a great time to meet both YPs and non-YPs. Chris, talk to us a little bit about the communications at ACC. I know you spend quite a bit of your time not only on the YP Forum, but also developing a social media strategy and implementing it, both on behalf of ACC as well as the members. Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, thanks, Don. So ACC, just like a lot of other trade associations, we have different forms of communication to keep you informed on what we're doing here at the headquarters, here in DC, and what's going on in the industry that may have an impact on your firm and on airport projects that you may end up securing or that you're working on right now. So for example, we have our ACC Weekly, which is a weekly e-newsletter that's sent out to members every Thursday. And it's a compilation of major stories at a domestic, international, and federal agency level. It really highlights the major stories in those sections. We also especially like to highlight ACC member news in the ACC Weekly, such as your press releases, new hires, new projects that you secured, because it's another way for us to show how other ACC members are succeeding in the industry, and we want to be able to highlight that to everyone. On top of that, we have employment and internship opportunities. I want to do a quick plug on that. You know, you can post your job opportunities on our website at a fee, and that's also exposed at the different communications outlets such as social media, the ACC Weekly, so you get a lot of exposure there. And we also have a new internship opportunities page that's free for any firm to post on our ACC website. And recently we reached out to high-level aviation universities just to let them know that this resource is out there, and they're fully aware that this page exists. So, you know, if you're ever looking for new interns in your aviation division, this is a really great source for them, and hopefully we'll build a bridge between interns and your firms. Last but not least, be sure to also check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Google+, and also YouTube. But it's another just form of communications where we can let you know what we're doing, what's going on in the industry, and also share our ACC member news. That's about it.
Thanks, Chris. I mentioned earlier in the call my progression through ACC. When I first joined ACC, I was completely new to the airport/aviation industry with no established network whatsoever. Right off the bat, ACC staff suggested that I get involved in ACC committees. I did. I got involved in a non-technical committee. Matt will explain in a second what that means. And that led to a leadership role in that committee, which led to a leadership role in the ACC symposium, which is why I'm slightly biased toward that event. Getting involved in ACC committees, though, is a natural first step to developing a network within ACC. Matt's going to tell us a little bit about what the committee structure is, and then later on, directly with ACC staff, I would encourage you to identify a committee and join it. Matt?
Thanks, Don. So on your screen in front of you, you should see a list of our technical committees. Don mentioned our non-technical committees. I'll get to them, but I wanted to take a quick couple of minutes and just to explain to you the number, the different technical committees we have, some of the general things they're working on, and try to encourage you to maybe find a spot to start participating within ACC. So you'll see there the first one we're going to touch on, I would say one of our mainstay committees is the engineering committee. They tend to be the place where we talk about anything from airfield construction to some of the technical issues that may go into some of the terminal buildings, pavement design and management, all those sorts of very technical issues that that take place within the industry. Generally, I guess, mostly on the air side. So the engineering committee takes a lot of time, looks through many of the advisory circulars, draft advisory circulars that FAA puts out, which now seems to be on a weekly basis, including some of the new standard operating procedures that the FAA Office of Airports is putting out. They also help direct some of our training. As I'm sure many of you know, some of the things that take place on the airfield are very technical and only really take place on airport airfields, so you really can't draw from too much experience maybe on the highway side, for example. So our members are right there in the front training the industry and helping to direct us on where we need to be spending some of our time. At the top, that pairs very nicely with the engineering committee is the planning and environmental committee. These are the folks that look at everything from airport master plans, next gen, terminal land, some of the landside issues, planning up into the curb and curbside development, right on down to all the broad environmental issues that are taking place at airports today, everything from wildlife management, noise management, and sustainability. Again, they take a lot of their time to look through many of the advisory circulars that the FAA is putting out on the airport side, as well as some of the SOPs. And they do work closely with engineering as, those two roles are pretty interlinked. Then we're going to go over to the security committee. This group takes a lot of time looking through much of the guidance coming from not the FAA but the TSA. They also count themselves some of the technical experts in some of the screening equipment and some of the screening equipment, other equipment that's been rolled out within the airport area. Our members are very knowledgeable in all of that, so many times the industry will come to the folks who are within that committee to help give them some guidance and some leadership on how to move forward with that. They also work closely with many of the other associations, including the National Safe Skies Alliance, in developing some of the guidance that's out there. Then we go down to the Terminal and Facilities Committee. This is where you're generally going to find many of the folks, the architects that do the designing of terminals and parking lots, consolidated rental car facilities. They are a pretty broad committee as they touch on everything from some of their major issues right now being asset management, building information management, and many of the passenger services technology that we're seeing being rolled out within the terminals, everything from passenger services kiosks to wayfinding. So broad group, very knowledgeable on all those things. You'll see the last three there, the Finance and Project Delivery and Advocacy Committee, probably are the two that work the closest together. They monitor all the implications coming from the bills on Capitol Hill. Everything from FAA, TSA regulations. They work closely to advocate on the behalf of ACC members when it comes to things like procurement and many of those issues that TJ touched on earlier. And they also work, again, with other members of the industry. One of our most, the conference we have coming up very quickly is the Airport Construction Strategy Summit. Our Finance and Project Delivery group has worked closely with ACI North America and the Associated General Contractors of America to put together this event, which is going to be June 8th and 9th in Atlanta. If you're interested in some of the largest construction programs within the U.S. airports, this is where you want to be. There's going to be a lot of good folks there. And then finally, the nominating committee is the committee responsible for nominating to our board of directors. So technical committees, our non-technical committees tend to be around our biggest events. So Don mentioned the symposium, and then Colleen mentioned the annual. Those are two great places to get plugged in and to work closely to network with many of our members and to maybe get involved in a session or two. Turn it back to you, Don.
Thanks, Matt. That really takes us through the agenda we prepared for today's webinar. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time out to learn a little bit more about this association that we're so appreciative that you joined. I'd like to open it up now to questions. Hopefully we can pull this off without a technical glitch, although with technology there's no guarantee. We'll try our best, and if this does not work, you can always type your questions in via the tool on screen, or you can certainly contact ACC staff later on directly.
So real quick, we did have a new member join. We had somebody join kind of late, and I'd like to call on him first, Robert Nelson. If you could just give us a quick 10, 15-second introduction to you and your company.
Yeah, thank you. Bob Nelson, Prine and Newhoff out of Michigan. We are engineering consultants, planners, environmental for a number of airports, large and small, across Michigan. And I have previously been part of ECC when I was part of URS, and now working with Prine and Newhoff on a more regional basis. Appreciate being back part of this group.
All right, thank you, sir. And so 3 seconds, I'm going to unmute everybody. Just prepare yourself if you got your TV turned up or something. We'll see if we can get some questions. If we do get a lot of feedback, we'll probably just remute. And as Don said, you can send in your questions or follow us up with email. So here we go.
I think as we transition to that, one thing I've heard from some companies that really have kind of a regional basis, and a lot of you do FAA work. One thing I want to bring to your attention is the fact that we've really lost some opportunities to engage with the FAA out in the regions. Their travel has been extremely restricted. At the same time, as you all know, there's a lot of challenges as it relates to new regulations, policies coming down, and a whole lot of new faces at FAA. And I'm going to try to stand up some small ACC FAA regional workshops to provide opportunity for consultants and regional FAA leaders to get together and just kind of talk about some of these problems. So Northwest Mountain, Great Lakes, elsewhere, hoping to stand up this initiative, and we're talking with headquarters about that right now.
Excellent. Thank you, TJ. So does anyone have any questions about ACC or feedback for the team here? Excellent. Well, it sounds like we had a thorough webinar, I'd say. Well, thank you all for taking time out to participate in this webinar. And please, the big takeaway is utilize ACC staff to be sure you are getting full value from ACC. And I think you'll find that if you make the effort to get involved in ACC, you will get more out of the association than you would ever have imagined. I look forward to meeting you all personally at some point in the future, be it at another industry event. ACC will be exhibiting at the AAAE annual conference in Houston, or there's the airport's technical workshop here in DC later in August, or at the ACC annual conference, which will be held in Florida in November. So I look forward to meeting you all, and thanks again. Take care, everybody.